Astra Travelers, and welcome back to Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, my fellow guides and I introduced you to the beautiful yet mysterious world of Teyvat. After reviewing our initial welcome to Teyvat, the curious origins of Paimon, and trying to figure out who the Traveler is, we could definitely say there's a lot to unpack here. In today's episode, we're going to take a look into Kaeya Alberich, everyone's favorite Cavalry Captain. But before we start, I want to remind travelers to visit talesofteyvat.com to see visual representations of the lore mentioned during today's podcast and future podcasts. Your guides have put them together for you to make things a little easier to understand. But now we're going to jump right into things. So I love Kaeya. I don't know about you guys, but he's one of my favorite characters.
I'm sorry, before we get into it, I have an announcement to make on the pod.
An announcement. Oh my God. I got so scared for a second.
So, I can't believe I'm doing this. All right, here we go. So, as backstory, listeners, travel with me behind the scenes into the podcaster studio.
Oh God, what is
we
this?
have a shared document that we all post our lore notes in, and Miss Feenster, she misspelled the word Conria in multiple places in a very specific way, and I have to inform you all that I now suffer from gonorrhea.
Not the gonorrhea!
No! I'm sorry.
And that means that you all also have gonorrhea.
Oh,
I'm
no.
so sorry.
Is this like the C gonorrhea for Kazuha?
Oh my God. None of us call anything by the right name while we play the game.
I mean, I'm never calling it gonorrhea ever again. It's going to be gonorrhea.
We can add that onto the nipple lotus and everything like that we have going right now. We can't pronounce anything. I can't even pronounce my name half the time. So we're trying. But anyway, misspellings aside, welcome to gonorrhea now. Kaeya, what were your first thoughts upon meeting him?
Damn.
Sus.
Really? You thought he was sus right away?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, he's swagged over.
He's sly. He's shifty. I don't know.
He's really smart.
Maybe I'm biased because when I first saw him, my first thought was he reminded me of David Bowie in Labyrinth, Jareth the Goblin King.
Yes.
So I think I loved him immediately because of that.
Of course. I felt like Labyrinth was definitely going to make an appearance in this podcast, specifically this episode. I thought Kaeya was really flirty and witty and cunning right off the bat. And I didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing.
Cunning is a good word. Yeah.
I saw Slytherin quite quickly, but Slytherin doesn't mean good or bad, you know?
I mean, he feels like he's in the gray area where, like, regardless of what he does, he's out for himself. And that's kind of hot. And, like, damn. Also, he's kind of got a camel toe, so I don't know.
What did we call him when we first started playing Kaimel?
Oh my God. Shout out to Maury.
Shout out to Maury for Kaimel. So Kaeya is the third character that we have playable. We have Traveler and then Amber and then we get Kaeya. Kaeya's story quest was a little odd, right? Were we looking for his eye patch?
No, we were looking for... Wasn't it a sword? It was a relic.
Oh, yes.
A relic of his quote-unquote grandfather.
Yeah, it was something related to his eye patch, though, right?
It was like a sword given to him by his pirate grandfather who also left him the eye patch.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to this grandfather.
So complicated.
I have a theory. That was just bullshit. That was pulled out of his ass.
Yeah, I would agree.
Just to test us. Just to see.
So you think he wanted to see if we were trustworthy? You know, we're the new travelers in Mondstadt. Are they someone we can trust? Can we actually invite them into the Knights and into like our exclusive details on events and intel?
I think that, and also I think he needs to know he is the cavalry captain, but I think his like skill is more in recon and espionage. It seems far more like he was testing the traveler out for multiple different ulterior motives, some for the Knights and some for something else.
Interesting too is, and we'll get a little bit into this later, but when you talk to other people in Mondstadt about Kaeya, outside of the playable characters, more the NPCs, they all say Kaeya is amazing. And I'm pretty sure there's a line somewhere in the game about Kaeya being the perfect person to bring home to your parents, which is a weird way to describe someone that we're also calling cunning and possibly evil and testing us and not trusting us. So it's very interesting how the people of Mondstadt see him as well.
I mean, psychopaths are perfect until they aren't.
No. His charming personality could really be shining through at that instance, which probably makes him very good in the espionage and recon and things like that, like Al was mentioning. You know, the more sly you can be, some people will catch on to you and think that there's something amiss with the way that you're behaving, but other people will just kind of be like, oh, wow, this is such a great guy. And, you know, they get kind of put under the spell.
You want to know what's really funny about that is a few months ago, I had a dream about Kaeya. And I think I told my other hosts this story. I hope I did. But in it, Kaeya and I were dating. Very strange dream. And he actually wasn't himself. He was someone like undercover as Kaeya, like shape shifting into him. And ironically enough, I find that fits what we're describing Kaeya as right now, because even someone pretending to be him made sense because he's always on edge. He's always trying to trick you and con you. So I wonder if his closest friends even really know who he is.
I mean, you're attracted to Childe, so you're definitely into psychopaths.
Oh, no.
I concur.
Oh, no. This is the tear Feenster's crushes apart. Listen. They're cute, and I like a little bit of a bad boy sometimes, but I also love albedo, so...
True.
It's fine.
You do like a nice nerd.
Yes, exactly.
A nice blonde twink.
I won't get into it. So, okay, we have our cavalry captain now. Let's look at Kaeya for a second. You know, close your eyes, imagine Kaeya in front of you. We have a kind of tall guy, blue hair, ponytail, eye patch, dangly earring, a little bit of exposed chest. He's definitely dressed a little more extravagant than the other knights and other people of Mondstadt. But the two things that draw my attention the most are his eye patch and his like fur scarf.
I mean, well, okay, the eye patch for sure. No, it was his voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
It was his voice.
When you're playing games like this where it's very anime based, I'm expecting high-pitched voices, and I was very happily surprised when I don't hear that. And so when Kaeya is coming in kind of sultry, you know, like low tone, I liked it. And then you keep looking and it's like, this is great until you see the goddamn rat tail. And then I'm like, what the fuck? Cut it off. Cut it off.
A shout out to Josie Montana McCoy for voicing Kaeya and giving us the sultriness that Al wanted. I love that. But I do want to go back to the eye patch for a second. Sorry. Rat tail aside. What did you guys think of the eye patch at first? We're not going to dive deep into the lore of the eye patch until a little later. But what were your first thoughts upon seeing it?
I think it added a level of mysteriousness to him. Kind of made us think about, you know, who he is. And I think it seems like it may have been intentional for that purpose to make you go, who is this dude?
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought he was a pirate. I don't know how, but I totally had the idea that he was a Knights of Favonius go right over my head. And I thought he was a pirate, like dead ass a pirate.
Eye patch pirate.
Well, he was talking about his grandfather, the pirate, right? So the whole time I was like, oh, so you're also a pirate, right? That's like a lineage job. Everyone does that.
Which is also interesting. Why wasn't he a pirate? Unless you could think of pirate in the same type of sense where pirates are, you know, pillaging and maybe gathering all these different assets and stuff. And he's doing that, but in the side of knowledge and secrets and things like that.
Interesting. But also he's a very Jack Sparrow-esque pirate. He's drunk a lot.
Yes. There's a line that Rosaria has about how she tries to get information out of him and basically just says, I just give him a bunch of drink and then he just starts spilling it.
Genius. Rosaria is an absolute genius. So, you know, that actually brings me to an important point too. Kaeya has a lot of relationships going on in the game, so maybe it's important to note some of the important relationships in his life. I would say that the Knights of Favonius would be top tier, meaning that he works with Jean, Lisa, Albedo, and Amber, and Eula on a regular basis.
And Fischl.
Fischl a knight?
Oh no, she's Adventurers Guild.
Fischl's just around.
Fischl's like, I'm the Princessian, and you're Kaeya.
And you have an eye patch, so we are both manic.
One of the many eye patches.
So many eye patches. Tiff, weren't you telling me before the podcast that Jean keeps track of his eye patches?
Yes, it's actually in Noelle's character story, I believe it's, or friendship level. She talks about how Jean keeps a bunch of really random things, the contents of Amber's Baron Bunny, Clee's hidden bomb caches, but also the number of special eye patches that Kaeya has. So I don't know if she just keeps a running tally of them, or, is she like sitting there drawing them? Who knows?
I love that Jean's like running a Knights of Favonius meeting and going, action point number 1 for our notes. Kaeya has a new eye patch on today.
Yes.
She's just actually gone in to all his eye patches and like drawn a very small number just so she can tell which one she does.
I mean, that's her man's brother.
I mean, you gotta keep eyes on him.
That's so true. I wait for the day that all of Mondstadt can cheer when Jean and Diluc get married.
I don't care if they get married. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Fucking, oh my God. Raw dog it. I don't care.
Okay. But Tiff, I also forgot about Noelle. She's important to Kaeya's work life too. So you have a whole bunch of knights. You have Diluc and the estranged brother situation, which brings in Elzer and Adeline from the Dawn Winery as well, and Charles at Angel Share as people who are probably important in his life. And lastly is you kind of have that third rank of people who would include Rosaria, the Traveler, Venti, and are just general people that he runs into while working in Mondstadt, right? Would you say those are all the important characters in his life?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I mean, obviously, any bartender knows him well. Imagine Diona's not a fan. I don't know if we know that for sure, but I'm going to assume based on Diona, she's not a fan of his.
He's keeping the wine industry in action. Ugh.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say that those sound like the most important people. And then there's the flower girl it's the flower girl that loves him, right?
Oh, no, that's she loves Diluc.
Yeah.
Wrong one.
She was like, I loved Diluc, but now I love the Dark
That's
Knight.
right.
Like, I love Bruce Wayne, but I love Batman more.
Literally.
Like, what the fuck?
All right. So then that kind of brings me into on the surface level of what we know about Kaeya, brings me to the end of his story quest. Kaeya brings us to a domain where we fight an ice abyss mage. And right when things seem like they're not going to end well, Diluc comes in and Kaeya's just like, meh, welcome, brother. And he kind of comes in, does his thing. That to me was a really big hint at Kaeya as a person too. He just knew Diluc couldn't resist. We'll talk a little bit later, but I think the recent Hidden Strife event also gives a little bit more information showing that Diluc and Kaeya might be talking a little bit more than we think. For our travelers who might not know, Kaeya and Diluc are very estranged brothers after a big fight they got into, which we'll talk about when we jump into a spoiler section of the podcast. So they're not on the best terms right now. But Diluc came anyway. Did that strike any of you as weird?
Diluc coming?
God damn it. I mean, it definitely shows the laissez-faire attitude that Kaeya has with Diluc. Diluc seems to be the one with the issue, while Kaeya's like, whatever.
Yeah, and I also think I say this all the time, and so you guys are going to be sick of it by now, I'm sure. But I really think it shows Kaeya's emotional intelligence in the situation. I think that he has a really high EI, much more than a lot of the other characters in the game. He's very aware of what's going on around him and with each person and how they're going to react to that news, in my opinion.
Yeah, most psychopaths do.
Oh, no.
Oh, God. It's just, Kaeya is the psychopath, which makes sense for who we think his father is. Anyway.
Blah, blah, blah. Which leads me to one other question for you guys. We're talking about abyss mages now because the domain has an abyss mage. A lot of people seem to think that Kaeya's fighting style is very similar to an abyss mage's. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Okay. So before I had Jean, I was using a lot of Kaeya, and I still use a lot of Kaeya. I've only recently set him back for Ito because my baby. Kaeya has a particular set of move actions, and if you attack continuously, at a certain point, Kaeya will bamf, like he'll blink just the same way as an abyss mage will.
Mm-hmm.
He'll blink and go behind a target, And if you continue that rotation, you can continue to blink. And this goes into a lot of the original name for his passive, which now it's Glacial Heart. Originally, it was the Heart of the Abyss.
Oh, interesting.
I definitely think Kaeya has a big connection with the Abyss on some level.
Okay. Yeah, and for our travelers who maybe don't know the Abyss is where our Abyss mages come from, and it is a different plane in Teyvat. Brandon knows a little bit more about the planes, but the Abyss is one of those underground layers that we talked about last week, actually. So, talking about layers, we're actually going to jump a little deeper into Kaeya's story now, into some of the nitty-gritty things you might not know just from doing his story quest or the Mondstadt Archon line. So we do want to let our travelers know that there is a spoiler promised land ahead of us. So please proceed with caution if you're not ready to hear about some deep Kaeya theories. Al, you were mentioning something about the Abyss and Kaeya, and I know you held back a little bit because you didn't want to spoil anyone. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the relationship between Kaeya and the Abyss?
Yes, I can't help but spoil people. I really can't. The Abyss connection comes in multiple different facets. It comes from Kaeya not necessarily being like, he is brothers with Diluc, but he's not a blood brother. He was adopted by Diluc's father, was brought into the family, and he was originally from Conria.
Conria.
It's not confirmed who his father is, but we know he is Conrian due to his eye shape. His eye shape is our little special primo shape, very centered on like the overarching storyline of this game. Something happened in Conria, and lots of people have connection with it. And we think there's been a big theory that Kaeya is the son of the former king of Conria. We don't know who his mother is, but we have some theories on that. And because Conria is so mysterious, we do know like it's been cursed. A lot of the people that lived in Conria are now these Abyss mages or hilichurls.
I'm going to take a step back for our travelers though for a second and just kind of describe Conria on a very basic level. If you were with us last week, you would remember we mentioned a cataclysm that happened 500 years before the game starts. So the cataclysm happened in Conria, which was this ancient world that was underground, and they were living without any gods. When Celestia eventually and somehow got wind of this, a huge war broke out between Celestia, Teyvat, and Conria, and the cataclysm happened. No one is really 100% sure what the cataclysm was or is. Every Archon we run into and we ask to give us information about it doesn't give us anything. And we have no idea as the player what the cataclysm was. I have a feeling Traveler might know a little bit more that they're not telling us, but that's besides the point. Conria and this ancient nation we learn in the Dainsleif storyline during the Chasm was cursed. So anyone who was in Conria when the cataclysm happened was cursed and became a hilitroll or an abyss mage. So every time you kill one of them, remember that you are probably killing a random citizen of an ancient land. Also in the cataclysm, you have knights that you can fight. I believe they're serpent knights. And those are supposed to be people who used to be in the guard or the royal guard of Conria for the king and the royal family. So that's something to keep in mind with Conria. There are a few people from Conria who seem to not be cursed. Like Al mentioned, Kaeya is one of them. From what we can tell, Kaeya is not a hilitroll or an abyss mage, and he doesn't seem to have the like dying arm or body like Dainsleif has. Many of you who have met Dainsleif might notice that his one arm is black, and from what we can tell, it doesn't seem like Kaeya has a curse, but I could be wrong.
I will say he's not an abyss mage and he's not a hilichurl and he doesn't have like any, I guess, like mutation-esque stuff happening because he can literally blink the same way as an abyss mage. I have a feeling he's slowly, like even slower than Dainsleif, succumbing to the curse. And I think that's because he is Conrian, but he was not born in Conria.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Or like he's half Conrian because like we don't know who his mother is. And I know some of our friends rooted the name Kaeya to Sanskrit, which makes us think that his mother might be Sumerian. which could be even more interesting. So we're not sure, but I don't think he's escaped the curse just yet.
So you're saying that since Sumeru has some Sanskrit and Hindi origins, that there's a possibility he has a Sumerian parent because of that?
We don't know for sure.
Of course. I've always had a thought that, there seems to be a lot of time travel and time loop ideas floating around out there in Teyvat. I always thought that maybe Kaeya's parents were able to like transport him to the future and that he avoided getting cursed because of that. But it would make sense if the curse was possibly catching up to him at this point.
That's so interesting. I mean, my big question is, how old is Kaeya?
Yeah. That's a great question too, because and I'm going to go into a little more backstory. I know there's a lot of explanation today. But for those of you who don't know, Kaeya was left in the woods by his unknown father. And he was told that he was going to be like the great savior of Conria and that he was going to spy on the people of Mondstadt and he would save his people. And Kaeya is like assumed to be 8 or so. And he's just like, okay, Dad, whatever you say. And then his dad leaves him in the woods. And Krapus Ravager, Diluc's father, comes and finds him and adopts Kaeya into his family. So I've always been curious as well, Brandon, of Kaeya's age, because he must be aging at the same rate as Diluc.
Right. Like, is he that young or he has to be young, right?
I would think he's aging normally just because wouldn't Diluc be like, hey, why are you still 8?
Or is there some kind of weird thing where like he leaves Conria and then starts aging normally?
Like I said, my theory has always been that he evaded the curse at first by being like time traveled, teleported out of there. Totally like a crack theory, of course. I have no proof for that. I always assumed that Kaeya was aging normally because of that. But I could be very wrong. I'm not sure.
I mean, Occam's razor, he's just some rando kid from these people.
Mm-hmm.
That raised him, the regents of Conria.
Yeah, that's true.
Let me throw some crackpot, hyper-dized fucking theory. So we know Kaeya obviously is more of a Sanskrit name, but his last name is Alberich, which we can connect directly to King Alberich, the dwarf king, in a particular Germanic opera and heroic story, who is a hero king. He's a dwarf who has a very special sword named Dainsleif. The opera goes by several different names. I'm going to refer to it as Das Rheingold, mostly because that has big significance when it comes to Conria.
That's my boy Albedo's mom.
Exactly. Because there's too much of a coincidence that this opera has similar themes and naming. And the opera is written by Wagner. Ooh.
I mean, this reinforces my theory that he is the Prince of Conria.
Ooh,
which makes sense. So I think Feeny was telling us, because you've looked a little bit more into this, about what's the relationship between the king and his children.
Yeah, of course. So King Alberich, he had a son named Hagen or Hagen. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't heard the opera before, but he had a son and his son was said to be, stuck in an internal conflict and was given this mission by his dad that he had to do. And if he didn't do it, he was going to feel horrible. Both don't have both of their eyes, but Kaeya having an eye patch and Hagen actually not having an eye. And it also goes back to our chasm quests, which included things about King Ermin, who also is missing an eye, which I think, Brandon, you're talking about Kaeya maybe being the Prince of Conria.
I mean, this probably isn't true, but I love the idea that it is true. But he could be the son of Ermin and my theory is that Ermin is also Piero.
Oh, interesting. And for those travelers that don't know, Piero is the original Fatui Harbinger.
Numero uno. And he's hot as fucking hell.
And he has the same eyes as Kaeya.
Yeah, and he's missing one of his eye. Like half his face is covered, and it's the same side that Dainsleif is covering, and the same side Kaeya wears an eye patch. Although through Hidden Strife, we did learn that Kaeya's eye patch does not have Conrian origins, but brotherly aggression origins.
Yeah, we learned that Ermin was the one-eyed king of Conria, so that's definitely a thing.
So let's talk a little bit about Kaeya's parents then. We have Piero, who is a Fatui harbinger who is said to be around since the Cataclysm. Again, all these people not aging because Signora and Dotare are also both from the Cataclysm times. And we see at least one of them in game currently. So that's an interesting little tidbit too, is that these Fatui harbingers aren't really aging, except for poor Childe, who is the baby of the harbingers.
Poor child.
Poor baby. So we have Piero, we have Ermin, we have a possible Sumerian parent. You know, are we thinking that's a mother? Are we thinking that Piero might be Sumerian? Because Piero did study at the Sumeru Academia.
Well, that would actually be a really good place, though, then for him. If he wasn't from there, if he was from Conria originally, that would give a reason for him to have met his partner. That would be Kaeya's mom.
Give him plenty of time to knock up somebody.
You know, those college kids.
Exactly. I was that college kid.
Also, I think there's a lot of connection back to Sumeru as well with Kaeya, as his constellation is the peacock. In Islamic culture, the peacock actually represents royalty, which, you know, goes back to the Prince of Conria theory. But why would Kaeya have escaped as the prince? You would think that the prince would have been the one killed first almost.
Well, if he was abandoned by Ermin and then these regents stepped in, they could have adopted him.
That's true.
As they, you know what I mean? Like stepped up to lead the nation.
You think people like Dainsleif?
Ooh, I hadn't thought of Dainsleif in that scenario, but yeah.
There's a part of me that thinks that Dainsleif doesn't know Kaeya's alive. And I think that Dainsleif was very close with Kaeya. There was one point where I thought Kaeya and Dainsleif could be brothers or cousins. I'm going to jump a little deeper into the dwarf hero story. If I'm remembering it correctly from when I read it a little deeper, there is something in it about an illegitimate son, which makes me think that Kaeya could actually not be Ermin or Piero's son and could be illegitimate because of that. Could be someone else's, possibly meaning that his mom is Conrian, but his father isn't.
Ooh.
There's a lot of thought that the original Sumerian god could be his mother. There's some theories that the Saritsa could possibly be his mother, as she has lost all of her love for her people. And that could be because maybe she was even cheated on. Maybe Piero had an affair with the Sumerian woman. There's a lot of weird theories and lores that go out there. And if that's the case, the Saritsa could have been the one that brought upon the Cataclysm and then kind of forced the Fatui to join to fight against Celestia, because she could have said, this was not me. This was all Celestia.
I still think it was gold.
Ooh, okay. Ooh, oh God.
I second that. I think it's a lot more along lines of like, humans got too smart and we're like, we don't need gods. Bam! And got fucked! And like, there's a lot of things. And I'm like, I could go really deep into this, because I have some Greek tie-ins with this, but we can talk about that later.
We also know that the Archons were aware of whatever caused the cataclysm, because remember, that's how Makoto died.
Yes, she went to the Cataclysm to fight, basically, without telling A. We've talked a little bit a bit now about Kaeya's possible birth story, how there is definitely no set parent in his life that we know of, except for Krapus Ravenger. So Krapus, as we learn in the manga and a little bit in the storyline, he takes Kaeya in and he raises him as his own. And at the time, D-Luke and him are besties. They are running around together. Kaeya is constantly playing pirate, we later find out, in Hidden Strife, and feels that his practice with an eye patch was useful in the future. And he starts to join the Knights of Favonius with his brother and create a life before his adopted father dies. There's a lot of theory around the Krapus death. Kaeya wasn't there when it happened. He arrived too late to help, something that he seems to be torn about, in my opinion. But I know there are some different theories in the room.
Listen, he had sinister thoughts.
I think it's a translation error.
All right.
I'll defend it, because if you guys have read Kaeya's storylines or voiceovers, he talks a lot about having like an internal battle. His story specifically tells you a little bit about it. You unlock with his friendship, the stories. And in his stories, he says that if his birth father were to come back, he wasn't sure what side he would have to choose, which unfortunately does seem to give way to your sinister theory now that Krapus is dead, and he seemed almost relieved about it.
I feel like that's bullshit, though. If we're under the impression Kaeya was dropped off, I truly think he was born in contemporary with the storyline that we are now. I don't think he's time traveled. I think he was born not too long ago, if that makes sense.
You think he was born like 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh.
I truly do. Because Dainsleif has been stagnant in age for 500 years. If that were the same, then Kaeya would have been coming out and being like, hi, bro, and just the same continuously. But I think Kaeya would always choose Diluc and his family.
Why is that?
And the reason I say that is because he was able to bond with him. He doesn't have the pressure of like, I'm the Prince of Conria. Like, he doesn't have that pressure. He was able to be a kid. He grew up with these people. They showed him the world. He's not as affected by the cataclysm.
The cataclysm.
Yeah, sorry. The cataclysm? Oh, sorry. By this major event that basically destroyed his people. He doesn't have a connection between them. Not the same as his parents would, if that would make sense. So he may have been relieved. He probably was relieved that his adoptive father, who raised him, is no longer suffering, because he did die of a delusion, and that shit is insane and painful and traumatic. I think the relief is more towards that, of like no longer in pain, no longer has to like have this, conflict. But I think he is upset that he couldn't get there in time, because I do think he would, like, given the choice, like, you are now the Prince of Conria, you have to stand up and do this, or no, you have to protect Mondstadt with your brother, he would absolutely choose Mondstadt, I think.
And I have to agree with that, leaning toward him not being sinister, because there's a lot of translation issues in Genshin. That's something that I think everyone has noticed. A lot of people will actually go back and do translations from other languages in the game too. I know that the Chinese version can have very different meanings from the Japanese version to the Italian version to the Brazilian version even. And I don't think they meant sinister. I think they really meant that he was having these conflicting thoughts of like, oh my God, this isn't a thing anymore. Like wanting to feel happy because he could now just choose to fight against someone that he didn't care about instead of also defending a father figure. He, I think, felt relieved but sad at the same time. And I think that's...
But he's smirking while his adopted father is bleeding out in front of him.
Well, then he, like, fades the dust, though. It's very ironic, I'm sure.
Hold up. Wait. Where does he smirk? I don't remember that. I don't remember that in the manga.
It's in the storyline.
Yeah, it's in the story.
That's gotta be translation error. That's fucked. If that is true, then all of it's fucked.
He smirks and he's like, this is such a strange world, while his dad is bleeding out.
Yeah, which just leads to the side of he's not this, great guy on the side of Mondstadt, but he is some sort of cunning, sinister, presence from Conria.
May I suggest that this is actually the case of an unreliable narrator? Because Kaeya's storyline, his personal storyline that we unlock as you build friendship with him, is what tells us that he smirks. But Al just made a really good point that he is not smirking at all in the manga. And the manga is told from like a third person perspective, or Venti possibly. I don't know. Venti could be telling us the whole manga, but it's minimally a third person. And I think the fact that we actually see an upset Kaeya, and we later see him after Krampus, when he dies from the delusion, he turns into dust, very Avengers Infinity War style. And then they're left there in the rain. And Kaeya's face in the manga is very sad. There is no smirk in sight. So there is a possibility that Kaeya also is giving us a false narration. I think that he has a lot of guilt from telling Diluc later that night that he was from Conria, which then caused them to have a huge blowout. That night is when Kaeya got his vision, and it was to protect himself basically from dying, because him and Diluc were having a physical altercation, and Diluc already had a pyro vision, so he was using pyro abilities against Kaeya. He did strike Kaeya in the eye, and that's how he got his eye patch. Though he is not blind in the eye, he just wears it really to taunt Diluc at this point, because that's what brothers are for, apparently. But I would dare to say that Kaeya being depressed and possibly also manic from his depression and trying to put on a facade that everything was okay and he's a happy-go-lucky person, he might truly believe that he smirked and laughed when he didn't.
Okay. I can be convinced. I'm buying into this.
I think also Kaeya has a storyteller-esque aspect to himself.
Yes.
So I don't think he actually did that. I do think, though, he has a flair for the dramatic and would absolutely tell us as the traveler.
I mean, that fur.
Oh, that fur. I mean,
Dramatic.
come on.
Yeah.
Come on. He's got a goddamn rat tail with the fucking fur. Like, it's dramatic.
And an optional eye patch.
Just like, because I'm special.
It's funny that you say that Kaeya has a flair for the dramatics and has a storyteller attitude. I was on Twitter the other day and I saw something I didn't believe. So I logged into my teapot and I went to the furniture creator and I went to create the little Mondstadt lamp. And lo and behold, it tells you in there that Kaeya has told all the children of Mondstadt the lamp has been lit by the souls of dead fireflies that are trapped in the lamp. So he's definitely a storyteller.
Devilish.
He fucking would do that. He would do that. Oh my God. It's like, hey kids, do you like fireflies? Remember, every time you fucking turn on your lamp, it's their dead souls screaming from beyond the grave. This is some Hu Tao level fucking shit.
I feel like Hu Tao and Kaeya would actually get along really well.
The best homies. The best.
Also, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Kichibuchi event that we had quite a while ago, where we were taking pictures of our little Kichibuchi around Teyvat, giving him, a tour of the world. And every time we went to get food, they were sold out because Kaeya was getting food for the Fatui at the Goth Hotel.
Oh my God, I was hoping someone would bring this up.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What is he doing?
Because they never say. It's always anytime we wanted any kind of food, it was, no, there's nothing left. And it comes up a few times. It's not only said in Mondstadt, but I want to say it's said in Leeway as well.
Yeah, they say the blue-haired knight of Favonius came.
Yeah, it's said everywhere.
I have a weird theory about it that kind of goes back to the manga. In the manga, which I'll make sure to link on our site for any of our listeners that haven't seen it before. But in the manga, Kaeya and Diluc have a meeting with Barbara's dad, Seamus Pegg, and Dotaray, or a clone of Dotaray, I don't know, and one other Fatui member. They have a huge meeting. It leads to the Dark Knight coming and basically torturing them to get them out of there. They're trying to convince the Knights of Favonius, basically, to allow them to recruit Fatui there. And they're like, hell no, get out. Later on in the manga, 2 Fatui diplomats are killed. And that's really what sets off the main storyline of the manga. It brings Kale into play from Sumeru. And Kaeya ends up having to distract the Fatui and really play that diplomatic sneak that you guys were talking about earlier. So I am curious if he's been put in charge of keeping the Fatui happy, since they're still in Mondstadt after the Dvalin situation. They were actually supposed to leave after Storm Terror, weren't they?
They just, practicing squatters' rights at this point.
I think they've done a really good job of keeping his alliances neutral or ambiguous.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, is he working for Mondstadt? Is he working for Conneria? Is he working for
Not the Conneria.
I think you're right. And I think that the manga shows that with the fact that he's able to pretend play nice with the Fatui, but then he purposely sets the Fatui up with Diluc later on. And I love that relationship between Kaeya and Diluc, where Kaeya knows he's the Dark Knight, but doesn't tell anyone. He just hints at it and is a little playful. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, that was a nice moment that showed that he does sort of have a fondness and a loyalty to Diluc.
So I guess that kind of brings me to my last question, which is like, what do you hope to see from Kaeya as the game continues?
I want him to be presented with a dilemma where he has to choose between Diluc and Mondstadt versus Conneria.
I think I'm going to cry when he has to do that.
And what will he choose, Because
it's going to come down to basically his brother versus his real father.
Or is it his real father?
Exactly. One of his parents hopefully might be involved. This poor guy is so traumatized. all of his parents either keep leaving him or dying. And now he has like a contemptuous relationship with his brother.
We also don't know, his mother could actually just still be alive and in somewhere, because we know that he's spying on Mondstadt, or thinks he needs to spy. He's got to be telling somebody other than, like I said, Rosaria when he gets drunk. But he's got to be telling somebody, reporting back to somebody. So it'd be interesting to see if there's actually, maybe it's a sister, maybe it's a mother, or just some rando person who's like, yeah, tell me everything that you know about Mondstadt.
I was thinking too about Al mentioning that maybe Kaeya was recently born. What if, and this is a very crackpot theory, what if Kaeya is the son of Piero, the first Fatui Harbinger, and the Tsaritsa? And what if it was Piero's ploy to have a child with the Tsaritsa, tell the Tsaritsa that something happened to him and he died, right? And then leave him in Mondstadt. And now he has a demigod out there spying, hypothetically speaking, for the Fatui instead of for Conria even. What if that's more so the goal?
Yeah. Fatui always seems to be in the back end somewhere.
I have a very fun crackpot theory as well.
Ooh, go for it.
Which is, so this is leaning into the idea that he's the son of Ermin and that his mother is actually gold, which makes him Albedo's brother.
Oh, I hate that because I'm such a Kaibedo shipper.
Not the surprise incest.
I hate surprise incest. You know what, though?
God. I mean,
that makes sense. And you want to know why? So one of my favorite lines Kaeya has in his voice lines is about Albedo. And I always thought it was suggestive that Kaeya had a crush on Albedo. He basically is like, oh yeah, like everyone seems to like him. Why? Do you like him too? Like, do you have weird like feelings for him too? What if it's jealousy because it's his brother instead of a crush? It's not like, oh, you like him just like I do. It's like, oh, of course you like him. Everyone likes him and he's not even real. I'm the real boy.
He's made of chalk.
He's made of chalk, and I'm made of flesh.
Chalk or quack?
Oh no!
I'm sorry, that was a bad joke.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would be. I never thought.
I would
of that.
say no to that though, because like, who says that about their brother? Like, who's like, oh, you like him? That if that were the case, if that was if Kaeya was Albedo's brother, why would he talk about Albedo like that?
Well, I think that in the way that Feens is saying it too, though, is like kind of almost like, oh God, another person likes my brother.
Yeah, it's like, oh, everyone has a crush on my hot brother.
You, yeah.
I don't understand that. This is because I'm an only child. What are siblings? I don't know. What is this aspect, y'all?
The sibling rivalry is a thing.
Also, there's a few voice lines between the two of them that are interesting now. Now I'm like, oh my God. So first off, the voice line is Albedo, huh? Calm, collected, and incredibly talented. He's the type everybody likes. Some even more so than others. What? You into him as well? Then Albedo says that relationships are quite troublesome. Once you establish a relationship with someone, you must continue to maintain it. If you lose contact, you must re-establish the relationship, which is a taxing cycle. But later on, he talks about how he could spend half a day sketching Huffman, while he would only need 3 strokes of a pencil to sketch Kaeya. 1 for the face, 1 for the eye patch string, and 1 for the eye patch. So Albedo's also teasing Kaeya right back. And I don't know if this is a brotherly teasing or a flirtatious tease. And now I'm really confused.
I was gonna say a real bad joke. I was gonna be like, "Per qué no los dogs?" Like, I've been watching too much Game of Thrones, y'all. Too much CK3 on the fucking brain.
Incest being okay.
No, it is not.
Well, in Game of Thrones, it is.
Also, I'm scared because Kaibedo is the 7th most written ship under Genshin Impact on AO3.
Oh, no.
And that scares me because a whole bunch of people might find out that they've been writing bad stuff. No!
Oh, no. Sorry, strike it from the record. I revoke my theory.
Accidentally writing about incest.
I revoke my theory. No. The people can be wrong. It's okay.
I don't want this to be true.
I'll go to doing Tignari and Albedo now instead. That's fine.
How dare you? How dare you? You can't take Sinnoh away from Tognari. Like, are you kidding me?
Listen, you're right, honestly. I think they would just be good friends.
You know what? They could also be a throuple, only if it's all consensual.
You know what? No, Albedo's dating my OC Nat, so screw everyone else. I think I take a lot of the Kaeya stuff personally because of that. In my fan fiction, Kaeya and Diluc are adopted siblings with my OC. So I've done way too much research into them, and I have Kaeya as kind of a
backup lover.
No, he's her brother.
That didn't stop Albedo.
No, I have Kaeya as like the not overdoting brother who pays a lot of minuscule attention to the tiny details with her life. I feel I have like a weird connection with the character of Kaeya because of that. So I know I just want him to live and be happy. And I know that he's probably going to die. Him or Diluc are going to die saving each other, I think. Or are going to be killed by each other.
They're both going to die. And if Jean isn't pregnant with Diluc's baby when that happens, I'm going to cry.
I was like, I want all the trauma and I want it now.
I want all the trauma and all the babies.
Are there any final thoughts about Kaeya?
Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I'm along for the ride. Because this boy is too cute. Unless he changes his hair.
Al's on team haircut.
Team haircut. Get rid of the rat tails. What is it with Bahoyo and their fucking rat tails? I hate it. I hate it so much.
Just send Kaeya to Xingqiu's barber. It'll be fine.
Oh, so he can get the emo cut?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I just really want to know where he's taking all this food. It just always sticks. Like they made such a big deal about it, and it's, it just kind of stopped. We haven't heard anything else about it.
It was at the Goth Hotel, right? In Mondstadt?
Right.
Which is like the Snezhnayan sort of happy place in Mondstadt.
The unintentional Snezhnayan happy place. Yeah. The owner of the Goth Hotel is Mona's landlord as well, and is also the guy we can buy furniture off of in Mondstadt.
He's a sweet old man.
Yeah, I don't think he really realizes what he's doing.
I really think it's just Kaeya, like, somewhere in a back alley with all this fucking food just going...
Why were all these Snezhnayan people meeting in Mondstadt?
Well, they actually were brought to Mondstadt during the Storm Terror crisis. The Fatui decided that Mondstadt and the Knights couldn't handle it on their own since they were short-staffed, and they were supposed to leave as soon as everything got resolved with Storm Terror, which is something no one in-game ever mentions ever again after Storm Terror.
Yeah, because that dude's still standing in the church.
Oh, no. Victor has moved on.
Oh, he has? But the two people are standing over the two gossipy.
Yes, at the waypoint, you still have your gossiping Snezhnayans. You still have a guard. You still have a guard at the front of the Goth Hotel. That's Fatui. But Victor has moved on to Sumeru. Good for him.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I think for me, I just want Kaeya to live and be happy. And I don't know if that's going to happen. But travelers, let us know your thoughts as well. You can let us know on Twitter at Tales of Teyvat or on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod. We would love to know what your thoughts are and your theories on Kaeya. If you think that we are absolutely crazy, if you hate him, if you love him, if you think him and Albedo are brothers or dating or whatever. Otherwise, safe journeys, travelers. We'll see you next week when we talk about the Lawrence clan and their history in Mondstadt.
Bye, nerds.